NBA Today, live from Los Angeles.
This was a season that had so much promise, and it all fell apart.
Toxic tragedy. Armageddon.
No regrets. It happens. People want to have some hope of what may happen in the future, but it's hard for me to say.
How do you know?
Durant has had enough.
When it's time to go.
Requested a trade.
Run this course, you fell for the force, you hop in the Porsche and get on the road.
I can't worry about what people say. I just focus on me.
I'm built different, man, I feel different, even chill different when I whoop. We laugh and I breeze past and I might blast on the future. When they find out that you lie, you're out of time.
Welcome to NBA Today. I'm LaChina Robinson in for Malika Andrews, and I've got an elite panel of insiders with me today. Tim Bontemps, Bobby Marks, and Brian Windhorst. Just when it looked like the tensions with the Nets were cooling off, well, Kevin Durant turned up the heat. ESPN sources confirm KD has told Brooklyn to choose between him and coach Steve Nash and general manager Sean Marks. The meeting between Durant and Nets governor Joe Tsai was first reported by The Athletic, which also noted it occurred on the one-year anniversary of Durant signing his extension. On Monday, Tsai tweeted this, quote, "Our front office and coaching staff have my support. We will make decisions in the best interest of the Brooklyn Nets." All right, Brian. Start with you. What is going on behind the scenes with the Nets right now?
Yeah, this is an odd maneuver from Durant. And I use the word maneuver because this was done quite transparently to try to get the Nets to act. Either to act to clean out their front office and coaching staff or to act in get things moving on a trade. But the timing of it is very strange. It's not something that you would normally see a player do. The NBA is 75 years old. Star players have wanted their coaches fired for 75 years, and I am guessing they will want them fired for 75 more years. It's not something that's unusual. It's happened before. It'll happen again. But for him to not bring this up at the end of the season, to not bring this up when he asked for the trade on June 30th, to bring it up now, it's an unusual move, and it's frankly relatively easy for the Nets to say no to it, as Joe Tsai did, because the guy has asked to get out of your team. You can't acquiesce to such a demand, especially when he's got 4 years left on his contract. So I just don't. It's very difficult for me to see how Durant thought this was going to work in his favor. And as I've talked to teams around the league over the last 24 hours, they think, if anything, that this maybe restricts his opportunity to get traded in the short term. It's going to make it even harder for teams to want to meet the price that the Nets have already put up so high that has slowed all of this down in the first place.
Tim, I thought that the tweet by Joe Tsai was very telling. What do you make of the public support for his coach and GM?
Well, that was the easiest tweet sent in the history of Twitter, right? I mean, this was the easiest thing of all time for Joe Tsai to do. Let me see. I'm going to choose between a guy who 6 weeks ago asked to be traded away from my team and wants to go play somewhere else, or my coach and general manager who are under contract, right? Like that was the easiest thing I think he could have possibly done. And to me, to Brian's point, this situation is where it's been since June 30th. The price for Kevin Durant to be traded is very, very high, and no one has come close to reaching it. So everything that's happened since then, all the noise, all the drama that's gone on, the fundamentals of this situation haven't changed. Until somebody comes anywhere near the price that the Nets are willing to move on from Kevin Durant, the second part of that Joe Tsai tweet I think is interesting. We're going to do what's in the best interest of the Brooklyn Nets. Well, if they can't get anywhere near, Bobby, what Joe Tsai and Sean Marks think is good value for Kevin Durant, what's best for the Brooklyn Nets is to have Kevin Durant under contract for 4 years on their team. And by the way, if Kyrie and Ben Simmons and Kevin Durant actually decide to play and are all on the court, they could be really good.
Well, on paper, of course.
Well, right.
I mean,
we're only talking on paper.
We're dealing with the hypothetical paper in early August right now, and I think the big question will be what happens when we get to late September.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at, certainly for Kevin Durant, and I've seen everything, and working in Brooklyn and New Jersey, I've never seen it both, the head coach and the general manager. And my big question is, like, what's changed since the end of April here after they lost to Boston in the first round? Remember, Kevin Durant came out publicly right after they were eliminated, and we even have sound where he rubber stamped and endorsed Steve Nash as far as to come back for next year. And then basically, COVID, injuries, there were a lot of different circumstances here. And if he wanted Steve Nash fired, it would have been right then. It would have been a week later, not, right now.
Yeah, it kind of makes you feel like maybe there were some other things either happening or not happening that Kevin Durant expected. Shouldn't there have been conversations?
Maybe
being
what's
had?
not happened is he hasn't gotten traded.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what's changed. What's changed is he has to be traded, and he hasn't been traded. So, I mean, I think that's where we're sitting right now, where I think when this all happened 6 weeks ago, I'm sure Kevin assumed he'd be traded somewhere. The teams would line up, offer what the Nets would want, and a deal would get done. And what's happened is teams have been hesitant to offer that price because, as we all know at this point, teams don't think that the Nets have the leverage to really hold this thing out and get to where they need to do to get the right price. And so Kevin Durant is still in the Nets. The Nets are still sitting here in the same place they've been for weeks. We're still talking about it like we have been for weeks. And nothing has changed. And, for everything that's happened over the last 24 hours, I still think that's the case. I just don't think anything's really changed.
So, Brian, I go back to you then. If nothing does change, is there any chance that KD could decide to sit out if the Nets don't make a deal?
Yes, so you touched exactly on what this is going forward. So there's a 2-sentence tweet from Joe Tsai. It's a pretty powerful 2 sentences. I think the natural thing was to pay attention to the first sentence where he basically says, I'm not firing Steve Nash and Sean Marks. But in the league, the second sentence was the more interesting sentence. We will make decisions in the best interest of the Brooklyn Nets. Let me translate that for you. We are not going to be pushed into a trade. And so Kevin Durant, with this maneuver that he has gone to here to ask for this, in my view, has very much limited his options because he has asked to be traded. He has not been traded. He has asked for the coach and general manager to be fired. They have not been fired. So now if he is still on the roster come the end of September, which as of today I think is likely, is he going to come to camp? Can he, after being told no, 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 no across the board, can he come to camp and accept the L and just say, okay, I'm going to play? I actually think that would be in his best interest. I think that the chances of him getting traded will be easier if he's playing, especially because I think the Nets, frankly, are going to be pretty good. But he may not do that. And so we may have a coming point of drama as we head towards the opening media day. Last year, Nets media day was dominated by Kyrie Irving not being vaccinated and so not playing. And this year's Nets media day could be the other franchise player, whether he will show up.
Well, and I think the big thing is how much money does he want to forfeit? It's $500,000 for every game he sits out. It's $469,000 here. And I think, certainly the financial element will come into play here. But if I'm a team out there, is my interest in Kevin Durant going to increase or decrease based on what's going on right now? And if I'm, everyone, you read people say, well, just pick Kevin Durant in this situation. Fire Sean Marks. Fire Steve Nash here. But what's going to be the next coach? When does it end here? And I think if you're ownership, you certainly have to put up a stand in. And remember here, Adam Silver last year said during the Ben Simmons situation that it was a one-off. Okay, now is it a one-off? Are we going to see the same thing? We've got a collective bargaining agreement that's going to be negotiated again. I think you're going to see the owners really stick, put a line in the sand here, and this is going to be something certainly to follow moving forward.
Well, and think back to where this started. It started with the Brooklyn Nets back in May saying they wanted to reset the culture around the team and to take back control of the team, right? To have it be sort of a more traditional structure, and that they had a lot more logical planning throughout everything that was going on, right? If you go around and throw out your coach and GM now in mid-August and just throw things back, you're going right back to what they declared publicly they weren't going to do anymore. Yeah. So to me, it doesn't make any sense on any level for them to do what Kevin Durant wants here. And again, they have the leverage here. Kevin Durant is under contract. He's on their team. People keep saying, well, if this is what you have to do to have Kevin Durant on your team, then you do it. They have Kevin Durant on their team. The only way they don't have Kevin Durant on their team is if they trade him. So to me, like I said, the Joe Tsai tweet was the easiest layup for him of all time. Let me support my guys and continue to reiterate that we're going to go in a different direction with our team moving forward.
Well, and Brian, you mentioned opening night. If you had to pick one, who is more likely to be on the floor for Brooklyn on opening night, KD or Kyrie? Because let's not forget, there are two pieces here that are important moving forward.
This is now a very compelling question. And I mean, I actually look forward to the book that Steve Nash hopefully is going to write about this time. But at the beginning of the summer, as Tim just mentioned, we had Kyrie at odds with the team over his contract, with his future not certain, and Durant under a long-term contract. Now, we have the exact reversal. We have Durant not sure if he's even going to show up, and Kyrie and the Nets showing support for each other on social media, and even Joe Tsai recently tweeting praise of Kyrie Irving, because with only 1 year left on his contract, Kyrie needs to have a very good year this year. So now you have the exact inverse of what we had in June, where it looks like Kyrie is the more solid member of the Nets, and it's Durant who may not show up. It's a very odd set of circumstances, and we are still in the middle of this unfolding story.
And we've been wondering why those projections seem to fluctuate so much when we start to talk about Brooklyn. All right.